What was I made for? Taking a drive, I was an idea, looked so alive. Turns out I'm not real, just something you paid for. What was I made for? 'Cause I don't know how to feel, but I wanna try. I don't know how to feel. Someday I might. Someday I might. When did it end? All the enjoyment. I'm sad again. Don't tell my boyfriend it's not what he's made for. What was I made for? 'Cause I don't know how to feel, but I wanna try. I don't know how to feel. Someday I might. Someday I might. How to be happy? Something I'm not. Something I can't be. Something I'm made for. Something I'm made for. Something I'm made for.
I'll give y'all a minute to wipe your tears. Okay, church is over. We can go home now. Just kidding. Hello, Tapestry. My name is Brooklyn. What's up? How you guys doing? I am so excited to be speaking to you today, especially based on that song. Has anyone seen the Barbie movie? Yeah, you like my blazer? Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie. Yes, yes. That song was from the Barbie movie, written by Billie Eilish, and today we're talking about purpose. You were made on purpose for a purpose. Can we say that together? You were made on purpose for a purpose. So we are right in the middle of our series playlist, like Pastor Karen was explaining. And when I heard this song in the Barbie movie, yes, I cried because I am a crybaby. Did anyone else cry during that scene? No? Okay, one person. Thank you for being in touch with your emotions. We'll pray for the rest of you. But I cried during that song because haven't we all wondered what we're made for? Yeah? Anybody gonna be honest? We've all felt that. And in the movie, you're watching Barbie being like, well, what was I made for? What's my purpose? You know, she's a doll, she becomes, it's a great movie. You should watch it, very powerful. I'm one of those preachers where every time I see a movie, I'm like, okay, what is God saying? Like, what is the spiritual, message of this movie? Which, that's why one of my favorite series is At the Movies, which is gonna be in this December. It's one of the best series we do, where we do the same thing as playlists and we look at popular movies. But when I heard the song, I knew this would be great, and I knew what I wanted to talk about. Let's look at these words really quick. I used to float Now I just fall down. I used to know, but I'm not sure now what I was made for. What was I made for? Has anyone ever felt that way? Like you used to be confident. You used to know, maybe like right before you turned 18, you were like, oh, I know what my life is gonna look like. I know what I'm gonna do. Maybe when you graduated college, maybe when you got that new job, maybe when you got married, oh, I know what it's gonna look like. I know what my life is gonna be. And then it wasn't. Oh, I can see your beautiful faces now. Can you turn me down just a little bit? I think this monitor is on, Chris, but it's fine. We've all had expectations for our lives and they don't work out, right? Anybody can agree? I think everybody in this room over the age of whatever can agree to that. I love the last line of the song. Think I forgot how to be happy. Something I'm not, but something I can be. Something I wait for, something I'm made for. You were made on purpose for a purpose. And I want to talk to 3 groups of people today. The first group are the people who don't believe you have a purpose. You haven't even thought of it. You're just living life to live life, and you don't have a sense of a greater purpose because you don't believe you even have one. Second group of people, you believe you have a purpose, but you don't know what it is. You know you're called to something, but what is it? And how do you figure out what that is? And we're gonna talk about how to find your purpose today. And the third group of people is you know your purpose, but you're running away from it. Right? Okay. Can everyone just take a moment and help me out with the message? Let's all close our eyes really quick. Nobody's looking around, just me, because I'm in charge. So close your eyes. Okay. If you don't believe you have a purpose, can you raise your hand for me? If you don't believe you have a purpose. Cool. Thank you for your honesty. If you keep your eyes closed, but you can put your hands down. If you believe you have a purpose, but you don't know what it is, can you raise your hand? Wow. Thank you. You can put your hands down, keep your eyes closed. And if you know your purpose, but you've been running away from it, maybe you're not doing anything that has to do with your purpose, can you raise your hand? Cool. You can put your hands down and open your eyes. Wow, that was a lot more than I was expecting it to be. Thank you guys for your honesty. And I really pray that all of you would walk away with something for you and for your life today, because we're gonna talk about why purpose is so important. Purpose defined is the reason for which something is done or created or for which something exists. In other words, purpose is what you were made for. And whether you believe it or not, every single person on earth that has ever lived and ever will live was created by the hands of God with a God-given purpose. But not everyone chooses to walk out that purpose. Hitler, it wasn't his God-given purpose to have a genocide of Jewish people, right? He walked away from God's purpose. That, of course, was not God's original design. Martin Luther King Jr., he did walk in his God-given purpose. He knew God and what God said about equality of people. He walked in his purpose as a pastor first, and it led him to his greater purpose of being one of the greatest civil rights leaders and making a difference in America, following his God-given purpose. These are so interesting. 4 in 5 Americans believe there is an ultimate purpose and plan for every person's life. Honestly, that's a higher percentage than I thought. I thought America was, anyway. It's more than I was expecting people to believe. More than 2 in 3 Americans say a major priority in their life is finding their deeper purpose. And almost 3 in 4 people say it's important they pursue a higher purpose and meaning for their life. The majority of people believe in purpose. Christians, non-Christians. Why? Because that's how God designed us. He put something inside of you that is gonna look for purpose. And you've probably just been looking in the wrong places, like so many people are. This next study is really cool. Knowing your purpose actually helps you stay healthy in old age. I'll pray for my voice. A new study by a team of Harvard School of Public Health researchers finds that if you feel you have a higher sense of purpose in life, you are more likely to remain healthy and physically strong as you grow older. Adults with a higher sense of purpose in life were found to have a decreased risk of developing weak grip strength and slow walking speed. Other studies have found that a higher sense of purpose also correlates to reduced risks of disability, stroke, heart disease, sleep issues, and other health problems. Isn't that crazy? just by knowing what you were made for. There's something about having a reason to live. When you know what you're living for, it changes the way you live. I've heard so many people like, when their kids have kids, they're like, okay, I'm gonna get healthy because I wanna be there for my grandchildren as they grow up, right? When you have that new perspective of, oh wait, there's something I have to live for, it changes you completely. And honestly, and I don't have statistics on this, but I would almost venture to say that everyone who has attempted, or almost everyone that has attempted or committed suicide, it's because they didn't feel life was worth living. They didn't have a purpose. What's the point? What's the point of living? What is the point of being on this earth if it's just gonna be misery? And so they commit suicide. The Bible says this in Ephesians 2:10, we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus so we can do the good things he planned for us long ago. Not when you took your first breath, not when you said yes to Jesus, long ago. When you read Genesis and it says God spoke, he already had plans for you before he spoke light. Before the foundations of the earth were laid, he had a purpose for you. He had written your name on a little heart-shaped sticky note. And he said, I got big plans for this one. I have big dreams for this one. You were made on purpose for a purpose. But what if you don't believe it? Like some people in this room, some people watching online, they don't believe they have a purpose. So how am I going to convince you otherwise? Well, first, I want you to think really hard. Think, like Winnie the Pooh says. Think really hard. Why do you believe that? A lot of us believe things and we don't know why we believe them. And we won't stop believing them until we figure out why we believe them and heal from that whole part. So I want you to think, why do you believe that? Who told you? Maybe it was a parent. Maybe it was another kid. Maybe someone said, you're good for nothing. You're worthless. You won't amount to anything. What are you gonna do with your life? You're making dumb decisions. You can't do anything right. Who said whatever they said that caused you to believe you don't have a purpose? Maybe a teacher. Maybe someone online. Maybe a bully. Maybe just your family legacy. Everyone has lived and died the same way, and so why would you be any different? What is the reason? I want, really think about it right now. And I'm not gonna ask you to raise your hand and tell me, but I want you to know right now in your heart, in your mind, who told you or who caused you to believe you had no purpose and you had nothing great to offer the world? We aren't born believing that. We're not created to believe that we don't have a purpose, we can't do anything. Kids believe anything. Kids are the most confident people on this planet, okay? Kids believe they can do anything, be anything, say anything. Lord, I'm watching the Robinson kids this week because Stephanie's at a conference and Markus is at men's retreat, and Dominique, she has said some things to me this weekend. She's hilarious, but kids don't have a filter. They can say whatever they want, do whatever right? That's how we're naturally born. Pastor Karen and Galley's daughter, she started school this fall, and they said, Elle, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she said, a unicorn. And she believes it. Kids believe they can do anything. So when you think about that, you were not born thinking the way you're thinking right now. You were created to believe you could do anything. And no, it's not conceited. No, it's not stuck up to be able to say, oh, I can do anything. God created you to say that. Your beliefs will shape the way you live. If you believe you are nothing, you will do nothing. If you believe you're not financially smart, you won't be financially smart. If you don't believe God loves you, you won't ever you won't really be loved by other people, and you will never know how to love. Your beliefs shape your entire life. And you've believed for far too long that you don't have a purpose and that you have nothing to offer. And so you have missed opportunities and you have wasted time. And I'm praying that today you will stop. And God can give you that wasted time back. He can give you all these great and amazing opportunities. You can be anything. And kids that aren't confident, have you ever met a kid that's just like timid, And I'm not saying personality-wise. God creates us with different personalities. Some kids are quieter than others. I was a very loud child. Shiloh, not so much. My little brother, he was very, quiet, more, But Shiloh was confident because he'll still say whatever he wants to say to you, like even though he was more of a quiet voice. But those kids that are very timid and scared almost, they lack confidence. And it's because a parent or an authority figure in their life has killed that confidence inside of them. Criticism does not create confidence. It doesn't. Criticism does not create confidence. Confidence creates confidence. I'm getting married soon and I'm gonna start having children soon. I know. Actually, this is crazy because today is the last Sunday I am introducing myself as Brooklynn Langston, because the next time I preach, I will be Brooklyn Perino, which is very, very exciting. Hi, family. But we're obviously getting married, we're talking about kids, and so I've been watching like a lot of videos and like how to be, a good mom and stuff like that. But most consistent of the videos I'm watching is about how you talk to your kids when they make a mistake. And it's one thing to say, let's say they break something. Why'd you break that? You break everything you touch. What's wrong with you? What do you think that's gonna instill in that child? I'm broken and I break everything I touch and I can't do anything right. You think they're ever gonna grow up to be a confident young person? Probably not, because you're word cursing them. Whereas if they break something and you're like, hey, you know what? It's okay. We all make mistakes. I still love you. Help me clean this up. You need to know the responsibility. Do you see what I'm saying? Your words matter. And somebody spoke something to you, and maybe you can't remember it. Maybe you don't know what it was, or maybe it was too much to even pinpoint who, when, and where. But somebody at some point in your life told you something that shaped the belief that you have no purpose. And you've been believing it for decades. And you've been living out of that for decades. The more you believe in a kid, the more they'll believe in themselves. And even if you weren't raised with that mindset, when you come into life with Jesus, he becomes your father and he has a totally different style of parenting. And he does believe that you can do anything. You were made on purpose for a purpose. Psalms 139, 13-16. Oh yes, you shaped me first inside and then out. You formed me in my mother's womb. I thank you, high God, you're breathtaking. Body and soul, I am marvelously made. I worship in adoration. What a creation. You know me inside and out. You know every bone in my body. You know exactly how I was made bit by bit, how I was sculpted from nothing into something, like an open book. This is so important. Like an open book. You watched me grow from conception to birth. All the stages of my life are spread out before you. The days of my life all prepared before I'd even lived one day. That scripture right there tells you Jesus was there with you. He saw it. He didn't intend for that trauma. Of course not. Thank you, Millie. He didn't intend for that trauma. But we live in a broken world full of broken people who God doesn't control, but he so desperately wants to love. And even when the bad things were happening to you, he was holding you close, and he was looking at the coming up pages, and he was looking at the purpose that was just a few chapters later if you would just hang on. Amen. You were made on purpose for a purpose. I heard someone say once that God had a dream, so he made you and wrapped you around that dream. God had a purpose, so he made you. God had an idea, so he made you. God needed a business to be formed, so he made you. He needed a song to be written or a song to be sung, and he made you. He made you. There was a man in the Bible named Gideon. And Gideon was an Israelite during the time of the judges in the Bible. King David has not been king yet. David and Goliath. He's not king yet. The land is ruled by judges. And the Israelites were being crazy as usual. They were not worshiping. They were not doing what they were told. And they were disobeying God, worshiping idols after God brought them out of Egypt and saved their butt 1,000 times, right? So God sent their enemies to them. He said, okay, you guys want to disobey me? Watch what happens. So he sends enemies to the Israelites, one of the major ones being the Midianites. Let's read Judges 6:11. Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth at, I'm going to say Oprah, but I don't think it's pronounced Oprah, which belonged to Joash the Abiezrite. whatever. While his son Gideon was beating out wheat in the winepress to hide it from the Midianites. So Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress instead of a threshing floor, which is where you would normally thresh wheat. Here's a picture of a threshing floor. This is where you would take your grain after you harvested it from the field. At this threshing floor, you would separate the chaff, which is the bad part, from your grain, which is the part we eat, bread, right? You would take your pitchfork, throw it up in the air. The good stuff would fall to the ground. The bad stuff would be taken away with the wind, okay? To do this, you needed a big open space, which is why most threshing floors were on tops of hills. Why was Gideon in an ancient winepress that looked like this? It's in the ground. So Gideon's in a hole. It's a hole in the ground, okay? And Gideon is down there trying to thresh wheat. Why is he in the ground? We read at the end of verse 11 that Gideon was threshing his wheat in a winepress to hide from the Midianites, to hide it, because the Midianites were pillaging. They were taking everything from them. They had no crops, they had no food. So Gideon is making this wheat for food, but he's hiding it. He's doing it in secret in a winepress. He was afraid. His family was worshiping idols. They had altars. And yet God sent an angel to sit with Gideon. And the angel said this: when the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." He's not on a battlefield. He's a coward. He's hiding. And his family is worshiping idols. He hasn't been praying. Like, nowhere in this book do you see Gideon saying, "Lord, I want to make things right. Help me." No. Gideon's just doing whatever he's doing in that winepress. The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" "Pardon me, my Lord," Gideon replied. That's how you know it's gonna be bad. When anyone in the Bible says, "Excuse me, Lord, but right? How can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." The Lord answered, "I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive." Gideon argues with the purpose God was giving him. Gideon defines himself by his family. He says his family is the weakest in all of the Israelites, is what he's saying. Why? My family is the weakest clan out of all the Israelites, and I am the weakest in my family. I was thinking, maybe he wasn't just hiding the wheat in the winepress because, just to make sure the Midianites don't get it, and that's why he wasn't on the battlefield, but maybe that's where his family put him, because that's all they thought he was worth. "We don't need you on the battlefield. We don't need you in public. Go here, hide, and just have the hard job of trying to separate the wheat from the chaff in this winepress. You're not worth being over here, so you go hide over here." Maybe it wasn't even just him being a coward. Maybe it was his family saying, "Go ahead, the weakest of our family." Because who told him he was the weakest? Obviously his family, because his family at some point decided who was the strongest and who was the weakest, and they probably said that to him every day of his life. "We're the weakest clan, and you're the weakest member of this clan." He defined himself as being the last choice. Anyone ever been the last one to be picked for dodgeball? Yeah. Imagine that being your whole personality trait. Like, that is you. I'm the last. I'm nothing. Nobody wants me. I'm good for nothing. He really argued with God, saying, "God, I think you have the wrong guy because of my family." And that's what keeps getting me, is the fact that he thought God couldn't use him because of the family he came from. And it's how a lot of us think, right? That God can't use you because where you came from. But I want to tell you, whether you were raised in a Satanist home, an agnostic home, a Muslim home, a foster home, on the streets, or in an orphanage, whatever family you come from, God still wrote your book. He still put a dream inside of you, and he's still choosing you. You can't let your family history keep you from walking into the freedom and the purpose God has written out for you. One of my favorite things about the story of Gideon is this, in verse 25. That same night, the Lord said to him, "Take your second bull from your father's herd, 7 years old. Tear down your father's altar to Baal and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Then build a proper kind of altar to the Lord your God on top of this height. Using the wood of the Asherah pole you cut down, offer the second bull as burnt offering. God instructed Gideon to tear down the family altars, and some of you need to do the same. Maybe physically, maybe there's some altars physically somewhere that you need to go throw in the garbage, burn them, get rid of them. But some of you have altars in your hearts and in your minds, and the fire is just fanning the flames of the negative words spoken over you as a child, because your whole life is built around it. It's what you're worshiping. Whether you realize it or not, you're worshiping those word curses that they spoke over you and spoke to you as a child, and probably even as an adult. And you have to tear it down. You have to get rid of those word curses, of those altars. Your purpose is waiting for you to heal and stop letting yourself be defined by from where you came from. Another story to further this point, and I'm not going to tell it, but you can go read it, is the story of Saul. He was a murderer of Christians. He killed some of the disciples that you read about in your New Testament, yet God saved him. He was completely transformed into a man named Paul, and he wrote most of the New Testament that you read. God can use anybody. Right. If you believe God is real and you believe what he says, then you have no choice but to believe that you were made for a purpose and that God is calling you to something bigger than you can imagine and bigger than yourself and bigger than you think you're ready for. And if you don't believe in God, maybe you're here because someone dragged you, maybe you're here kind of just testing the waters. I believe that God created you bit by bit and piece by piece. And I believe that he put a purpose inside of you, far beyond your wildest dreams, and it will bring you the fulfillment you've been looking for. So how do we find the purpose? Okay, we've established we have a purpose. I have 3 ways that I think are the basic, good start to figuring out what purpose God has placed inside of you. 3 things. What makes you angry? What are you good at? And where is the need? So the first one, ask yourself, what makes me angry? Homelessness, sexual abuse, poverty, child hunger, Bible illiteracy, foster children, etc., right? Now, I'm not just talking about a regular, all of those things should stir something in us. All of those things should kind of like, man, that's evil, right? But you have something specific inside of you that God put there that makes you care a little bit more about that specific thing. For me, it's teenagers. It always has been, ever since I was a teenager. I'm about to start crying right now. Like, if you even just show me a broken teenager, I'm like, oh my God, how do I help, right? But I don't have that same passion or that same righteous fury over other topics. That doesn't mean they're not important. That doesn't mean I don't pray for them, right? But there's something about Gen Z that gets me like, okay, let's plan, let's dream, let's make all these things happen. What is that for you? Think about it right now. If you had to pick one thing, let's say you got to quit your job and you got to serve full-time ministry. Okay, you got to serve in the church full-time. What would you be doing? Who would you be working with? Would you travel and go save children from sex trafficking? Would you go be a missionary and bring Bibles to places that don't have Bibles? What would you do? Would you become a Christian in Hollywood and make Christian movies? Would you be, a multi-billionaire business person so that you're able to fund ministries? What would you do? What is that cause that stirs something inside of you that brings you to tears? Or maybe it hasn't brought you to tears yet. You're still in the anger phase. You got to work towards the tears phase because God doesn't need you to be the judge. He needs you to be the hands and feet while he takes care of the rest. And so that anger turns into passion. So what makes you angry when you see it on the street? Is it domestic violence? What is it? Martin Luther King Jr. said, if a man has not discovered something he will die for, he isn't fit to live. What are you willing to die for? I'm willing to die for teenagers, honest to God. If I was in a room, if I was with Urban Thread and something was happening, you best believe I'm running into the fire and I'm making sure they're okay. I've made my peace. I'm fine with that. Like, I'm not like, I'm not like hoping that it happens, but I'm just saying, like, I've made my peace. I'm willing to die for what I believe in. What are you willing to die for? And even yet more, what are you willing to live for? Because that's more of a sacrifice than dying for something. It's choosing every day to do something about an injustice that is stirring your heart. Number 2, what are you good at? Second way to finding your purpose. What are you good at? Music, right? Speaking, looking cute. Like thank you for the 5 of you that laughed. I'm trying to, take you highs and lows, right? What are your talents? Can you cook really well? Can you make people feel cared for? When someone walks up to you, do they just feel like they're the most important person in the world? That's a talent. That's a skill. Not everybody has that. What gifts do you have? Is it, organizing, planning things with your words? Can you write really well? Painting? What is it that you're good at? That's kind of easy. We all maybe have, know our talent. Does anybody not have a talent? Okay, so you already know. You're all on your way to your purpose. What are you good at? If maybe you don't even have anything that makes you angry yet, just start with what you're good at. If you can sing, you should be joining the worship team, okay? If you can teach, you should be leading a small group, teaching growth track, teaching Tapestry Kids, whatever. If you love people, you should be on the first impressions team. Figure out what you're good at. That's what growth track does. Growth track helps you figure out what your talent is and what you're good at and what gift God has created for you. You can do that today in step 2. They actually walk you through a whole test, and not like a, stressing out, like sweaty test, a fun test. I don't like tests, but I like these tests because it's a personality quiz, basically, and they help you figure out how God designed you. What are you good at, and how can you just start? The thing is, you don't have to know your 12,000 step plan for your purpose. You just got to start somewhere. One step, just start somewhere. Figure out what you're good at, and then go from there. Number 3, where is the need? The need. Before David fought Goliath, he was his brother's Uber Eats driver, okay? I love you, Sherman. I love your laugh. You make me feel like I'm so funny. That was a good one, though. I was really proud of that one. If you don't know the story of David and Goliath, David wasn't a warrior on the battlefield when Goliath showed up and started talking trash. He was in the fields. Many scholars actually believe he was a bastard son, and so they would hide him in the sheep fields. And so his father, because all of his other brothers were on the battlefield, and his father said, David, take your brothers some food. They need to eat, because Goliath had been taunting the armies for days, weeks, maybe even, I don't remember, but a long time. So David takes the food, goes to his brothers, and he hears Goliath talking trash about God, saying, all these crazy things. And David was furious. So he shows up, hands his brothers the food, hears Goliath, and he says this, who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? He starts asking, what will be done for the man that defeats Goliath? And the soldiers and his brothers start laughing at him. And they think he's too proud and that he just wants to be the guy that kills Goliath. So David says, what have I done this time? What have I done now? Is there not a cause? Is there not a need? Do you not see it? He's like 10 feet tall. Why is no one doing anything? Have you ever walked in a room and you're like, oh, that needs to be there. That needs to be done. What are people thinking? I'm very wired like that. Is there not a cause? Is there not a need? He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't on that battlefield with the purpose of defeating the enemy. He was serving. He was obeying what he was told to do. And then he walked right into a cause, an opportunity, and a need. He just walked into it, and there it was. Tapestry Kids has a need for small group leaders. Urban Thread has a need for small group leaders. Evangelism team has a need for people to be out on the streets. Tapestry Church has a need for you. Literally every team. I could sit here and list all of the teams. So if you're like, oh, I don't know what to do, we need you, okay? We need you. And the thing is you don't have to, like I said, have everything all together. You got to start somewhere. David was taking one step at a time, and then he walked into the cause that ended up leading to his purpose, to his destiny. If you were to look at your world, your family, your neighborhood, your school, this church, and you ask yourself, is there not a cause? What need would you see? What need would you see? Your school has a need for a Christian club. Your job has a need for you to be a little bit more bold with your faith. Your community needs someone to show up with home-cooked meals and say, hey, I'm here for you. What do you need? Your neighborhood, your neighbors, they need you. There's a need. There is a need. Is there not a cause? You were made on purpose for a purpose, and that purpose is closer than you think it is. And God might not shove it in your face because he wants you to be obedient. And he wants you to work on some things before he gives you his whole big purpose. Maybe you feel like your purpose is leadership or preaching or being famous. It won't start there. David was a shepherd first in private. Then he was a servant. Then he was a giant killer. Then he was a shepherd again for decades. Then he was king. He didn't kill Goliath and they were like, let's make David king. No. David was chased all around, the other king trying to kill him. It was a whole big deal, okay? The purpose doesn't just come right in your face as soon as you say, okay, God, I'm here. I cleaned one toilet. I'm ready. No. That's not how God works. God says, okay, here's another toilet. Clean that one now. Your purpose might not look like you think it should. It might not be shiny or loud or attention-seeking. And that's exactly where God needs you. He's gonna teach you some things. Do for one what you wish you could do for many. And I can just tell you from experience, do you know how many Urban Thread Friday nights, I'm the youth pastor, by the way, I don't know if I said that in the beginning. That's why I keep talking about teenagers. I'm not creepy, I promise. But do you know how many Friday nights I had 10 kids show up? And you know what I did? I cried in the corner to Jesus first. And then I walked up here, smiled, and I preached my guts out for those 10 kids and those 3 volunteers. And last week, we had 60 students show up during Sunday. Not even counting my 30 volunteers. There was 100 of us during small groups. That was that chaos last week. And it's gonna be again today during the second service. Do for one what you wish you could do for many. If I had gotten discouraged, there was times, guys, where 2 teenagers showed up. 2. You know how angry I was at parents, at some of y'all in this room, but I've forgiven you. But God was teaching me some things. God was telling me, you want to preach to thousands, but you won't preach to 2? Why do you deserve to preach at all then? Some of you got to get out of your head a little bit. You're wanting to do all these great things, but greatness doesn't just start. You are great. God is great, right? Greatness is, it starts where you are. What makes you angry? What are you good at? And where is the need? Where is the need? Look for the need and be selfless and humble enough to do something about it. And it might not be where you stay forever, or it might be where you stay forever, because you would be surprised at what you think you should be doing and what you really should be doing. And God is just asking you to give it a chance. He's asking you just go to the battlefield, even though you're not a warrior, and look for the need. So what about those who you know your purpose, but you're running away from it? You're not living in it. There's a story in the Bible about a man who ran away from God, and his name was Jonah. This is Jonah 1:1-3. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of that guy. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed for Tarshish. He went down to Joppa, where he found a ship bound for that port. After paying the fare, he went aboard and sailed for Tarshish, to flee from the Lord. A terrible storm comes on the boat that he's on, and all the sailors are freaking out, and they're like, okay, whose God is causing this? So they cast lots to try to figure out whose God it is. Finally, Jonah confesses, and he's like, oh, it's my God. It's the only God. But he's like, it's my fault that we're all here. So they took Jonah, threw him overboard, and the raging sea grew calm. Now the Lord, and by the way, all of those guys on the ship repented and started serving the Lord, so that was cool. Now the Lord provided a huge fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. That's what's gonna happen if you keep running away from God. Something's gonna come out of the Hudson River and just take you. And I don't wanna see any fish in the Hudson River. As a kid, we used to believe that if you even touched the Hudson River, you turn green. And I really believed that with all of my heart. I still low-key believe that. Inside the fish, Jonah prayed, and God commanded the fish to spit him up on dry land. Then the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time. Go to the great city of Nineveh and proclaim to it the message I give you. Jonah obeyed, and he went to Nineveh. Now, Nineveh was a very large city, and it took 3 days to go through it. That's interesting, isn't it? That he was in the whale, the fish, for 3 days, and then it took him 3 days to get to the city? I don't know. I think God was being kind of intentional about that. God was preparing him because obviously Jonah was not ready for that 3-day journey of the city. So God said, okay, we'll take a 3-day journey in the belly of this whale to get you right. Because if you read his prayer, Jonah got himself right. It took 3 days to go through the city proclaiming, 40 days more, and Nineveh will be overthrown. The Ninevites believed in God. A fast was proclaimed, and all of them, from the greatest to the least, put on sackcloth. The whole city repents. God chooses not to destroy it. The city of Nineveh, those people, they needed Jonah to say yes. The whole city ended up repenting. Someone is waiting for you. You can't live selfish anymore. Someone's waiting for you, and maybe it's just starting, it's your family. Maybe your family is waiting for you to release some blessings when you walk into your purpose. Because God can't trust you with the things you're asking for because you don't trust God enough to do what he's called you to do. I don't know. Anyway, maybe you haven't been walking in it because you don't know where to start. Well, we just talked about how to start. What are you good at? Where's the need? Grow to growth track, join a team. Oh, that should be like a thing that rhymed. Write that down, somebody. But it's easy. We make it so easy for you to start because if you ask anybody serving on a dream team, they will tell you how it's changed their life. They will tell you, even just on like production team, we have a lot of teenagers that serve on that team, and the confidence that comes over them when they're down here handling that camera. The young man today, he's 12 years old. First summer camp was this summer. He was leading worship on stage. Guys, when I tell you, I walked in, okay, let me just talk about purpose for a second. We walked into youth camp with no worship team. Okay, that's the kind of faith I have in my God. We had no worship team. Friday night, we put out a YouTube video. It was horrible. Saturday, I was like, God, you better do something for me because I can't do this anymore. By the end of camp, we had a youth band. A kid on guitar, drums, singing. One of the students, we had the youth band without the guitar sing on, I think, Saturday night. And the last night of, or maybe it was Sunday, the last night of camp, which would have been Sunday night, a student comes up to me and she says, do you guys have a guitar? And I said, I don't, but I will get you one. Do you play? And she's like, yeah, like, I guess I could. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, I'll get you a guitar. And literally divine intervention. Joshua and I had been walking to the house, and I literally was like, man, I can't wait till we have a whole band. And then I walk there, Leah and Bim are standing there, and we're just kind of chatting. She comes up to me, asks me that question. Oh no, Bim wasn't there, just Leah. She comes up to me, asks me that question. I look at Leah, she goes, oh, Bim's in Jersey City, he can pick up a guitar. I'm like, cool, we'll have a guitar for you in an hour. Like, you know, I send her the songs, she gets up there, she plays. Come to find out, her sister told me she's never played the guitar in public before. Ever. Like ever. And her sister was shocked. Like she was standing there like this, while her sister was playing. Her parents came up to me, they're like, wow, this was amazing. And the girl, she comes up to me, she's like, man, I wish I had done this from day one. I was too scared to ask. She was like, but I figured the last day, and this is what she said, oh, this is so important. She said, I was waiting for somebody else. I figured somebody here had to play the guitar. And then she said, man, I wish I had started this from day one. You're waiting on somebody else. And God is saying, I'm not sending anybody else, you're it. You're it. It's you or nobody. Now, I do believe that if you don't do it, I believe in both. I believe that if you don't do what you're called to do, God's gonna send someone else to do it for you. But I also believe that there are some people and some callings that God is saying, only you. Amen. Only you. And you've been running away. You've been running away. And God is saying, okay, well then it's not gonna get done. I believe I'm one of those people. I believe my dad is one of those people. Where if we hadn't done it, it wouldn't. It just wouldn't. You're running away from something that God literally created you to do. There are people counting on you not to run away. Remember Gideon? After God called him a mighty warrior and he tore down his family altars, he sent Gideon to go fight and lead the army against the Midianites. And the enemy came at them, and this is what the Bible says. The Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon. Then he blew the trumpet. You're not doing it by yourself. The Spirit of God is gonna come upon you. It's inside of you, coming out of you. It's not just you. That's the thing, is we get so in our head of like, well, I can't do it. Well, duh. God can though. Like, that's the whole point, guys. The whole point is we're a vessel. We're the hands and feet of Jesus, okay? Hands and feet. These are the only parts we are. He's the majority, okay? We're just the little things, but he's everything else. Yeah, you can't do it. I can't do this today. My prayer all weekend, God, you speak. Use me, God. I'm your vessel. You flow through me. That's the prayer that we have to pray in order to live out our purpose. It's not about you. It's about God and what he wants to do through you. He will give you boldness. And living out the purpose that God intended is what will bring us happiness. True happiness. Actual happiness. Not happiness that goes away when that significant other goes away. Not happiness that goes away when you get fired or when your kids move out or when you haven't been able to exercise or you've been eating crappy, right? Obviously, we should eat healthy and exercise. But that happiness that you find, that momentary happiness, it's not real. Only God can give you real joy. And honestly, it comes through purpose. Yes, we have the joy of the Lord when we come in relationship with him. But when I tell you there is nothing like walking in your purpose and seeing other people affected by it. If I could tell you how it feels to be at a youth camp and see 80 kids in the altar praying, that feeling inside of me, it's like, wow, God, you can use me? I must be pretty great. Like, it's okay to have confidence. It's okay to say, you know what? I am who God made me to be, and I am doing what God made me to do. And there's a joy that comes from serving. There really is. There really is. True happiness. You're looking for purpose. It's how you were designed. But you're only going to fill that void through you're only going to fill the void that you're feeling through relationship with Jesus and living your God-designed purpose. Let's look at this Billie Eilish song again. When did it end? All the enjoyment. I'm sad again. Don't tell my boyfriend. It's not what he's made for. Oh my gosh, that line can preach. Right? It is not what he's made for. It is not what she's made for. You are the only person responsible for how you feel. That's what I've been learning in my pre-married course, okay? Me and Joshua have been learning. I am not responsible for how he feels. I'm responsible for how I react to how he feels, but I'm not responsible for his happiness. That's on him. I'm responsible for being a good wife, making it a nice home to live in. I'm not responsible for him feeling whole inside. It's not two halves becoming whole. It's two wholes becoming all together, okay? You will not find that fulfillment through a significant other because that's not what they were made for. When you look at Adam and Eve, they were wholly created and they had a purpose. God created man, he created woman, and he said, okay, guys, you're married now and here's your purpose. Replenish the earth, take care of the earth. He literally gave them a purpose. Yes, when you find the right one, when you come into marriage, whatever it is, you will have that purpose together. But that significant other is not your purpose. It's part of your purpose. Your children, they're part of your purpose. But there's more. Because what do you do when they leave the house? What do you do when they graduate? If you don't have a purpose, if you haven't been building a life, what the heck are you gonna do? Yes, raise your children. Yes, they are your first ministry. Yes, it is important. But so is the whole broken world out there. And you've got to find somewhere to serve a need. I'm not saying to take out your priorities. I'm just saying make sure serving somewhere is a priority. God can satisfy your soul, and he's the only one that can. Psalm 16:11. You will show me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. God wants to show you the path of life. In his presence is full true joy. At his right hand, pleasures forevermore. The dreams that you have, the things you want, the promotions, the vacations, the peace of mind, pleasures forevermore. You can live with a purpose, and it all starts by saying yes to Jesus. Can we all close our eyes right now, actually? God, I pray right now that anyone who came here not believing they had a purpose, that you would start to move in their hearts and minds right now. That those who came here not knowing what their purpose is, God, show them right now. Drop a word into their mind. Show them a picture of someone. He is speaking right now to some of you very specifically about what you were made for. And God, I pray that anyone who has been running away from their purpose, that you would bring them home today. That you would place something inside of them that they know they can't run away anymore. That spiritually a big fish would swallow them up. And that they would align their hearts with you again to walk in your purpose. What if God rewrote the words to what was I made for? What would he sing to you?
I hear your questions. Hold on to me. You have my attention. I know what you're made for. I know what you're made for. You are designed for my purpose. Dreams far beyond you can imagine. I know what you're made for. The good you are made for.
Can we do it one more time?
I know without it, I hear your purpose. Hold on to me. You have my attention. I know what you're made for. I know what you're made for. You are designed for my purpose. Dreams far beyond you can imagine. I know what you're made for. The good you are made for.
Can we all stand? And can we all say this together? I was made on purpose for a purpose. Let's say it together. I was made on purpose for a purpose. I want to open this altar up and I want to pray with people. Prayer counselors, you can come up and actually just stand on the stage with me. That way you can see. But I'm going to ask you for some boldness today. If you were one of the people who didn't think you had a purpose, could you join me in this altar so we can pray for you? If you raised your hand for that. Thank you. If you were one of the ones who raised your hand because you know you have a purpose, but you don't know what it is, can you join me in the altar? Thank you so much for your boldness. Thank you, Jesus. And if you were one of the ones who know you had a purpose, you have a purpose, but you've been running away from it, would you join me in this altar? You can feel your ear. Thank you. Thank you for your boldness. You guys can come right in the middle here too. Thank you, Jesus. Prayer counselors, you can go ahead and just start moving throughout the room. Anyone who feels like you have a purpose and you've been walking in your purpose and you're confident about that, would you help me pray for these in the altar? Would you come forward and let God use you to pray for people? Thank you. The band is gonna sing. We're gonna pray for these in the altar, and it's not too late. You can still come join us in this altar, but we're gonna spend a few minutes just worship with us and pray for everyone in this altar.